So they can't really lie anymore, especially about the jobs numbers. What do I mean? Well, the jobs numbers obviously have been taking a massive hit lately, with the amount of new jobs coming out has been below expectations. We saw the massive 800,000 plus downward revision of jobs that were never actually created throughout the beginning of this year. And now we have some more interesting jobs data that tells an even worse picture of how things are going with this right now. One of my viewers, Kip, sent me this story. So if you want to understand what's happening with the job market right now, in August this year, there was 76,000 job cuts announced just in 1 month, which was a 193% increase from July. And while it's only a 1% increase year over year, because a year ago it was 75,000, that's still a lot. And I'm going to show you guys some visual data, how much the layoffs have picked up, which proves once again that the Fed is lying about this as well, because they said we haven't seen a meaningful uptick in unemployment or layoffs, so therefore we're not worried about it. That's what Jerome Powell just said at his recent press conference. So far this year, companies have announced 536,421 job cuts, which is actually down from the 557,000 announced through August of last year. So people would look at that and say, well, this is a good thing, right? Except when you combine that with how few jobs are being created and the downward revisions in the amount of jobs being created, it tells a different picture. And when you look at this graph here, all the way back to 2021, the amount of job cuts were very low, right? But then what do you notice? Starting towards around the middle of 2022, you start seeing the layoffs pick up, guys. And it has been up and down since then, but it has mostly been way up compared to where it was in 2021. So when you're consistently seeing this many layoffs happen throughout the year, that should be something that the Fed is concerned about, but apparently they're not. I think that they secretly are concerned about this, and that's why they kicked off their rate cut cycle with a 50 basis point rate cut. They just don't want to admit it to the public, because I saw a lot of you guys say in the comments, which is true, like, when has the Fed ever come out and admitted that, you know, we're in a recession or that things are bad? Of course, they're never going to come out and say that. But you got to understand that this recent surge in job cuts reflects growing economic uncertainty and shifts in the market. Companies are facing a tremendous amount of pressure right now from rising operational costs, as well as, you know, the potential for economic slowdown, which many businesses are already experiencing, which leads to people getting laid off. So we've really had 2 strong years in a row, 2023 and 2024, of a substantial amount of job cuts. Yet the Fed says nothing to see here. In education, for example, the job cuts are up 222% year over year. You know, a year ago it was only 7,800. Now it's over 25,000 job cuts in education. In entertainment and leisure, the job cuts are up 85% year over year, 21,500 this year compared to 11,500 last year. Industrial and manufacturing is seeing a whopping 261% increase in job cuts from just 1 year ago. Retailers are actually cutting far fewer jobs than they did a year ago. In fact, 53% fewer jobs than a year ago. But you also have to understand, it's a lot of retail businesses that are closing down their doors for good right now or filing for bankruptcy. So here's the top 2 reasons that all of these companies cite for cutting jobs right now in August of 2024. They said cost cutting and market and economic conditions. Those are the 2 reasons. So people can kind of like sit there and pretend all they want that all these problems that I talk about here on the channel don't exist and they're not really happening, but clearly businesses beg to differ. And things aren't looking too good for the immediate future for job openings either, which is why you're probably going to continue seeing the jobs numbers that come out month after month get worse and worse, because right now we have record low hiring plans from US-based employers. Right now, US companies only plan on hiring about 80,000 people compared to the 135,000 people it was last year. 41% decrease, guys. That's pretty big. The last time it was this low was actually in August of 2008, when the anticipated hirings were about 80,000. So we're there right now. We're actually below 80,000, 79,000. And that was already once we were in a recession, guys, and they're not even calling this a recession yet. You also have AI taking over a bunch of people's jobs. Take a look at this chart here. This shows you how many jobs have been lost to AI so far in 2024 compared to 2023. What do you think 2025 is going to look like? We've already talked a lot in this video about job cuts and how much people have to worry about the layoffs coming down the line right now. You can see how much people have been losing jobs over the past couple of years. It has really ramped up, to say the least, but at least you don't have to worry about your online security and your data being stolen, because today's video is sponsored by DeleteMe. And DeleteMe is a hands-free subscription service that removes your personal information that's being sold online. So DeleteMe's privacy experts remove you from hundreds of different data broker sites all year long, and they remove information like your phone numbers, your address, people who are related to you, all sorts of personal information that could be used for someone else's gain that these companies really shouldn't have. I personally decided to sign up for DeleteMe because I like to keep my personal information out of the hands of data brokers as much as possible. And you guys can see by looking at this chart here how much information has been removed since I signed up with them. So make sure to get 20% off your DeleteMe subscription today by joining using my link down in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. Even the trucking data is showing a recession right now. Bob sent me this story about how bad trucking is right now and how much that's off. Because when you look at trucking data alone and how much shipments are down right now, just by looking at that data compared to where things used to be in the past can already tell us that we are in fact in a recession. But this is not one of the economic indicators that the Fed or the government looks at. What we can look at is called the Cass Truckload Line Haul Index. And what it is a measure of market fluctuations in per mile truckload line haul rates, independent of additional cost components such as fuel and accessorials. They say that this peaked at 168.6 back in May of 2022. Back then, people were buying stuff like crazy because of all the COVID money. A lot of people were getting paid to sit at home and not even work. But now, this shipping index has dropped down to 136.7 and has recently started dropping faster after it sort of leveled off at the beginning of this year. So when you take a look at this chart, you guys can see that, of course, naturally the trucking numbers went up as we dug our way out of the last recession. And you can also notice that during the last recession, all the way to the left, that this index dipped pretty heavily back then until it finally started to recover once the economy started to get better. But now you can see we're right back to the same situation, guys. Look how much it has been dropping recently, and it just seems to be going nowhere but down right now. And what this shows you is that people are just not buying the level of stuff that they used to. Otherwise, there would be more shipments to go around for all the truckers. And this especially puts, independent truckers in a bad position. A lot of them bought their own rigs back in 2022 to take advantage of the big boom back then, starting their own trucking business. And now just a couple years later, they're struggling to make payments on their trucks because there's no work. And you got to understand, no matter what business it is, whether it's McDonald's, whether it's Burger King, whether it's an independent trucker or a small mom and pop grocery store going out of business, it's not good. It means someone's losing a job. It means someone can't afford to spend money at other places in the economy. And it also means they may not be able to afford to pay other bills either. And here's the other thing people need to understand is GDP is still being reported as positive and is still being predicted that it's going to be positive throughout the end of this year. But this decline in trucking activity can actually predict that GDP will likely go down throughout the rest of the year, because if people aren't shipping things, then how are they buying anything? What are they buying? The only thing I could think of at that point is people are buying things that don't need to be shipped, like services, things like that. Because every other time that this Cass Expenditures Index has gone negative, it also has brought falling GDP at some point in the future. So it would be highly unusual, essentially an anomaly, for us to see continued growth in GDP, but also see this trucking index continue to fall. So just like all these other economic data points that we're looking at week after week, what are the odds that all of these indicators of where things are at right now are wrong, guys? I feel like the odds of that are literally slim to none. Because if you're saying that, then you're essentially saying that the SOM rule is wrong, the yield curve inversion that we had for a long time that recently just became uninverted is wrong. You're saying that this trucking index is wrong. You're saying that the gold prices shooting through the roof, predicting further inflation into the future is wrong. All of that stuff is wrong, when historically it's never actually been wrong. So me personally, until I see proof that it is actually wrong, I'm siding with history on this one and still predicting that things are going to continue to get worse. And they are getting worse when you look at where it was a couple of years ago. You know, when you look at where was unemployment 2 years ago, where was the home buying index a couple of years ago? Where was consumer sentiment a couple of years ago? All of these measures of the economy were sitting at a much better position just a couple of years ago, and you can't deny the fact that these things have been dropping. So personally, I'll side with history on this one and predict that we are still in for this hard landing, and it's only just now starting to be felt in certain areas across the country and throughout the economy. But as it builds up steam and as the recession continues to get worse, more and more people will be affected by it and finally be convinced that, yeah, this is actually happening. Now that fast food prices across the country and really across the world have gone off the charts and have increased substantially, a lot of people have stopped going to these fast food restaurants, and they've been trying all sorts of gimmicks to get people back in through the door, like $5 meal deals and breakfast deals, all sorts of things like that. And it hasn't really helped all that much. Honestly, I don't know if it's ever really gonna recover, because a lot of people now perceive fast food as expensive. And it's not even really that it's a perception problem. It's more like, you know, if you can walk into a fast food restaurant now and spend $10 to $15 per person, then it starts raising the question of maybe I should just go to a local diner or a fast casual restaurant where I can spend roughly the same amount and get more food potentially, or healthier food for the same amount of money. You know, the value just isn't there anymore. And let's just take a look at this one data point alone that illustrates what I'm trying to say. So over the last 5 years, the price of a medium McDonald's French fry has gone up 44%, guys. That's a lot. You know, that's pretty much on par with the price increases people have seen with everything else in their lives. You know, the car prices, home prices, grocery prices, and you know, the value just isn't there anymore. So you got more and more people asking themselves right now if that weekly trip to Taco Bell or Wendy's or KFC is even still worth it, because the whole value proposition for all of these restaurants since the beginning of time has always been it's a cheap way to get a meal without breaking the bank. By the way, anybody dig the new Metallica tank top? Got this thing on clearance at the Metallica store. How cool is that? And by the way, I'm in the Bay Area, and I know Metallica's headquarters up here in San Rafael. If anybody has a hookup where I could actually meet Metallica one day, that would just be like a dream come true. FYI.
Here we have a rental listing, 2-bed, 2-bath for $4,600 a month. Just hit the market a few days ago. But here's something interesting. Going all the way back to 2015, it was only $3,600 a month. So in 10 years, the price has barely gone up $1,000 a month for such a fancy area. That's kind of a surprise. But check this out. According to Redfin, in order to comfortably afford this place, you would need to earn about $15,333 a month, guys, just to be able to make this 30% of your income. Just goes to show you how crazy expensive it is to live over here. And this is actually sort of like a good deal for the area. Most 2-bedrooms around here would easily be over $6,000, $7,000 a month. So insane.
So right now, the big problem that a lot of these fast food restaurants have is that their foot traffic is either flat or on the decline, like so many other businesses right now, especially businesses that don't provide an essential service. And I would easily say that fast food is not an essential service for pretty much anybody. So all these restaurants are faced with a similar situation that a lot of businesses are facing right now, which is that consumer visits are dropping and their costs of operation are rising. However, the CEO of McDonald's is convinced that McDonald's already offers a tremendous value. They just need to up their perception. They need to be seen once again as the best value out there in the fast food world, and that will somehow help business pick up. Well, when French fries are up 44% in 5 years, I don't think it's a perception problem. It's a price problem. People are going to realize that and say, you know what, I think I can do better somewhere else. And that's what so many are doing now. According to a survey from LendingTree, 62% of US consumers said they were eating less fast food than they used to because it's too expensive. And between 2021 and 2024, food prices jumped 20% according to the official inflation data. Well, we know that it actually jumped far more than that, more like 50 to 100% for most people. And I think part of the problem that these businesses are facing, like many other businesses, is just the suddenness of it, right? Like when you're used to paying a certain price for any item, especially something that's cheap, and it goes from being $4 to now $8 to have the same amount of food, that's a pretty big shock. The price just doubled, and it leaves people in a position like, well, I have less money than ever because my wages are not keeping up with inflation. Am I going to spend it on this, or am I going to spend it on that? The average price of a Big Mac, that's also gone up by 21% over the past 5 years. I sometimes wonder if these businesses are even going to make it. And honestly, it's probably better if they don't, right? Because they don't really contribute anything positive to society. They feed people food that is really bad for your health, and it makes people sick. The only good thing about it is it's fast and convenient, and if there's nothing else around or nothing else open, then you can get a meal, which maybe is better than starving, I guess. In this story, they talked to one McDonald's franchise owner who owns 11 McDonald's restaurants here in Northern California. He said that in some of his locations, we're seeing customer spending decline and foot traffic decline as well. That's not a good combination. He's owned these places for 30 years, guys, and he says, in the 30 years I've been in business, I've never been so pressured to grow sales and keep costs in line as right now. Also, being here in California, the $20 per hour minimum wage definitely is not helping. One thing I really agree with what this guy says is that the fast food industry cannot discount its way out of its current business challenges, because obviously they need to make money to be able to survive. And ultimately, value is the combination of price plus experience. So that's what makes going to nice restaurants that charge a lot of money worth it. When you go to a restaurant that you like and you spend more than you would like to on dinner, it still feels good because it's the experience plus the food was so good that it makes it feel worth it. So remember, this guy owns 11 different McDonald's, right? But business is slowing down so much that he's closing down one of his locations in San Francisco that has been operating for 30 years. And all the experts are saying, oh, the fast food industry is going to be fine. As soon as consumers start accepting that this is the new normal and this is what the prices are, it's all going to work itself out just fine. But I'm not so sure about that. A lot of the experts, in fact, think that, once people get used to the new normal of fast food prices, it's going to be irresistible for them and they're going to want to come back. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, at first you kind of back away, I'm not going to buy this anymore, but I really miss having that Big Mac once a week, so I'll come back anyways. That's what they think is going to happen. So that's why all these fast food companies right now, what they're doing is they're spending money on marketing to once again give you the perception of value. They want people to still think that even though prices went up, 40, 50% on a lot of these fast food items, that it's still a better deal than going to a traditional restaurant. And one of these sneaky marketing tactics is actually through credit card companies. Apparently, this was something that was sent to me by one of my viewers, Phil. He says that he has a credit card that pays cash back for purchases made at certain businesses over a certain period of time. So that's pretty much how all cashback credit cards work. They change the categories or they change the businesses and they give you extra money at certain places. Well, guess which place right now is offering extra cash back? You guessed it, McDonald's. He said from October 1st through the end of this year, his credit card is offering a 5% cash back bonus to go eat at McDonald's, guys. So do you think that's a coincidence? Absolutely not. You know, the McDonald's marketing team partnered up with his credit card company and said, yeah, we'll offer this incentive, and this is a way to lure people back into the store in combination with the $5 meal deal promotions and other things that they're doing to try to get people back. But here's a couple things to understand. Number one, all these promotions are temporary. They can't do this stuff forever because it will just cost them too much money, right? Even a lot of the franchisees are already complaining about how much money this is costing them to have these promotions going on, because people come in, they buy the promotional $5 meal deals and they don't buy anything else. The bottom line is, I don't really care if companies like McDonald's or KFC or Wendy's ultimately go out of business, guys. I don't go to these places anyways. I know it's not good to eat this food, but the reason I bring all of this up is because it shows you how people are reacting to the insane amount of inflation that we've all experienced. It also shows you the fate of the future of this economy. You know, people are starting to realize what's important, what's worth spending money on, and what isn't, prioritizing their funds, and that's going to dictate who survives this recession and who doesn't. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.